So while we have a little bit of time between the main events here, I'm going to give a little talk on connectivity value and this notion of Telco 4.0. And I'm going to start with a provocative statement. How we doing? Okay. I'm speaking to the telco operators in the room. I'm not talking about the UCaaS players. I'm not talking about the over-the-tops. I'm talking about telco. And it's a fact that this is an industry in crisis. An industry in crisis. Why do I say that? The panel touched on it a little bit. Telcos have spent something like $3.6 trillion over the course of the last 10 years, and revenues are down. Can you imagine another industry that's invested $3.6 trillion and has seen negative returns? So we got to ask that question. Are we getting the right levels of return on that investment? The answer is clearly no. No. All this investment has been very much focused on connectivity. And for the shareholders in these companies, their returns are down 10%. This is not the place where I would want to have my money, that is for sure. It's been an over-focus on connectivity. And so one of the fundamental notions here is that we need to start changing our focus from just delivering connectivity and start talking about delivering value. Value is, at this stage of the game, where we do have almost pervasive connectivity, what we need to be delivering to our customers. So this notion of embracing innovation and moving beyond simply delivering more bandwidth to our customers and delivering more value is what we need to do. Now, the industry's North Star, the telco industry's North Star, for many, many years has been all about just delivering more bandwidth. Now, there becomes a question. Are we approaching enough? Are we approaching enough connectivity? I would say, in many cases, yes, we have enough. Take me. So I live normally, and this is kind of an interesting little point, I normally live in Denver, Colorado. At my house, I have a gigabit of connectivity coming in. I've got a gigabit. And I consider myself a power user, right? I'm kind of a nerd, I'm a photographer, my wife streams Netflix, I back up my photo collection, I'm on Teams calls and Zoom calls, and do I ever feel like I do not have enough bandwidth? Never. I have enough. Now, look at this chart. Let's talk about some data. You will notice a pretty particular trend. Which direction is that trending? Down. Now, there's an interesting spike there, right? Those were the days of COVID when people went home and went to work from there doing Teams and Zoom calls. We had a big spike in data growth rates during the COVID years, but the overarching trend in data growth rates is negative. If you extrapolate that line, ignoring that little uptick here at the end, we are trending towards almost no growth rates in data. And I'm a perfect example of this, right? I really can't consume any more data. I consume all I want. My growth rates are nil. That's what's happening on the fixed line side. It's the same story on the mobile side, all right? We step out of this room. Actually, how many people got on the Wi-Fi here? A couple. Very few of us got on the Wi-Fi here. Why? Because we've got plenty of that 5G goodness streaming into this room that we don't even need to get on the Wi-Fi. Do we have enough connectivity? Yes, we do, at least in many, many places. And it's a similar story in mobile data growth rates, trending towards zero. There is only so much 4K video that you can consume on your mobile device. Now, of course, I can see you out there, high levels of skepticism. We are in the business of delivering connectivity. Of course, we need to just continue to drive more and more and more and more. Yes, and that's true. Of course, we don't have ubiquitous, high-speed connectivity everywhere on the planet. But are we going to get there? Somebody threw up a slide of our I'm going to talk about Elon Musk. No, I'm not going to talk about Elon Musk, but he really does want to bathe the planet in high-speed connectivity. So there is going to come a day when there really is enough connectivity. So this is not to suggest that we don't continue to push more and better connectivity out into the world. It's to suggest that we need to add to our thinking the notion of delivering more value. Here's an example of a service provider who is absolutely delivering more value. So TELUS, based in Canada, they're doing things like delivering home security and home automation and managed Wi-Fi to residential subscribers. So a very straightforward use case for delivering more value on top of their connectivity. But those are the obvious use cases. And of course, we can do a lot more. Yes, we can. How? By leveraging the most profound technological advancement that any of us have experienced in our lifetimes. Of course, no program is complete without the reference to artificial intelligence. This is how we're going to do it. You heard Brian, my boss. Brian, you out there? Where'd you go, boss? I don't know where he went. Okay, Brian was talking about this notion of hyper-verticalization of services. How are we actually going to drive hyper-verticalization of services in the future? By leveraging AI. Now, when I say AI, what do I mean? I'm talking about what I call the AI tech stack. What is the AI tech stack? It is data centers being built by Microsoft and AWS and Google and communication service providers themselves, DTs by building a bunch of data centers and stuffing them full with fiber and power and NVIDIA GPUs. And then we have the large language models on top of that from OpenAI and Meta and Anthropic and AWS and everybody's most recent favorite large language model, DeepSeek. That is the AI tech stack. That is an incredible, some would say astounding platform to build new services on top of. Now, there's a small challenge with that AI tech stack. That is what I would call the general purpose AI tech stack. General purpose. All that stuff has basically consumed all of the data on the public internet to build its intelligence. There's basically no more food on the internet for this general purpose AI tech stack to consume. So what this thing is very good at doing is silly things like this, right? So I asked it to build a picture of a puppy and an ice cream cone. It's very good at that. It can write your LinkedIn posts. It can help you summarize articles. So it's very good at those sorts of general purpose tasks. But there is enormous value in what I call domain-specific data. Domain-specific data. Domain-specific data is data that's not just available out on the open internet. Domain-specific data, think about your own. In your business, you have a CRM, and you have billing records, and you have documentation. You have all this information that lives within the confines of your business that is not sitting out there in the most recent version of OpenAI's models. It's not. But there's also an even more interesting source of data that those models have no access to these days, and it's voice. The guys up here were talking about the fact that, voice is dead. It's 150 years old. It's boring. And I was sitting back in the corner thinking, there's a guy using his voice to say that voice is dead. How do humans communicate? Like this. How do humans transmit data between themselves? Like this. Voice is not dead. Voice is absolutely one of the most important sources of food for the AI machine. So what we are building here at Alianza on top of this AI tech stack are specific AI applications with this specific data, right? Data that lives in your enterprise, data that lives in communications, voice calls, meetings, messages, and what we're doing is unlocking that value. Now, speaking to the telcos, as I go out and talk to the telcos about their use of AI these days, the use cases fall into two major domains. Domain number one, internal use cases. We talk to service providers, and they're very focused on figuring out how to wring additional efficiencies out of the operation of their network using AI. How can they do preventive fault detection, fault prevention? How can they spool up AI agents to interact more efficiently with their customers? The telcos are thinking a great deal about efficiencies, but we're thinking about efficiencies. We're thinking about more interesting communications use cases. How can we use AI? How can we build on top of that AI tech stack and drive real value to our end customers through communications capabilities? That's what we're doing. Man, there's all these builds. Who's built this stupid deck? All right, let's talk about some communication services use case examples. First, many of us are Teams users. I would say most of us are Teams users. The 8x8 guy still in here? Sorry, Teams is winning. A lot of us have Copilot turned on in there. Copilot turned on. Copilot's amazing, right? You get on these big, long, complex calls. You get a transcript. You get a summary. You get action items. Microsoft is building agentic AI to have AI go off and do stuff based on that meeting. Now, is everybody on the planet a Teams user? Of course not. There are so many people out there in the world, right? I'm thinking about a rug seller in Madagascar who's calling customers to say, hey, listen, my latest rug, I just finished it. You want to come buy one? Or they're taking calls from their customers. Not everybody is sitting in front of a desk being a knowledge worker. But even for those people who are making regular old phone calls, why can't we do the same sorts of things? Why can't we do real-time translations? I'm an American. Therefore, I only speak one language, of course. There are many of you that speak multiple languages, but I would like to be able to speak to you in your language on a phone call where you're speaking in French and I'm speaking in my native tongue. That would be great. We have the power to do that. Call transcripts, call summaries, telephony agents, integrating in with the business applications that the small business might use. These are all the things that we can do, even if you're not a Teams user. That's a cute little guy. We can also do things like, here's a really interesting statistic. In the United States, 25 million people were the subject of a fraudulent message or call and were fleeced out of something like $50 billion. That was in 2023, $50 billion. Who plays a huge role in facilitating that fraud? Let's say it, we do. We, the telecommunications industry, we are delivering those bad guys right to the handset, right to the home of our customers. And sure, we're doing things like stir, shaken, and reputation number databases, all those sorts of things. But can we look at ourselves in the face and say that's working? No, it's not working. $50 billion of loss in 2023 alone in the United States. It's not working. It's not working. Why is it not working? For the very simple fact that you do not know what the scammer's intentions are until they start the scam. You don't know. So what are we building? I call it the Alianza Guardian Angel. Actually, I don't call it the Guardian Angel. I call it the Alianza Guardian Agent. And it is an AI agent that sits on the line, monitoring that line for actual scam behavior. If the caller starts asking for usernames and passwords and account information, we whisper to the called party and say things like, hey, please be careful. This is not looking like it's a good call. Don't give them your bank account information. Those are the sorts of things that we can do with AI. And this is what we consider to be Telco 4.0. Telco 1.0 was the world of TDM. Telco 2.0 is the world of VoIP, of Broadworks and Metaswitch, those sorts of platforms. Telco 3.0 is the world of cloud for communications. But we're now entering this new era of Telco 4.0, where we're bringing together AI and cloud to be able to deliver services that we were not able to deliver before. This is what we call, This is what we call the voice renaissance. The voice renaissance. We actually had a meeting with a large, major, tier 1 operator at MWC last week. And they walked in and said, listen, we've invested enormous sums in our voice networks, but we've been delivering these same boring services for the last 20, 30 years, right? What was the last great innovation in voice? Caller ID, maybe branded caller ID, right? Delivering the logo of the enterprise when you're calling that customer. Yay, okay? But now, with AI, we can do a lot more. This really is a renaissance in voice. And so, unlike 8x8 guy, I don't think voice is dead. I think voice is going to be experiencing this renaissance. So, reach out. I think I'm out there on LinkedIn. You may have seen a video or two of mine as we've worked through our Metaswitch acquisition, which has been an absolute blast. And let's have a conversation about this renaissance. All right, thank you.